Good evening and welcome to another program of the Guyana Dialogue. As you know, the Guyana Dialogue is being arranged or organized by Guyanese based in the United States, Canada, the United Kingdom, the Caribbean, and in Guyana. Funding support for this program is made available by Dave Narayan of Dave Westian Imports. Tonight, we are very happy to have with us the Honorable Minister of Natural Resources, Mr. Vickram Bharrat. We've been trying to get him a long time. We are happy to have him now because the aspirants have a lot of questions in relation to the petroleum sector, particular, particularly the oil that is being drilled offshore. And But before we go into that subject proper, I would just like to invite the minister to comment on news that there is a oil shortage, gasoline shortage, diesel shortage in Guyana. Minister, are you there?
Thank you, Dr. Tara.
Mhm.
Let me say good evening to you and the other gentlemen joining us on the program.
Um,
Good
as-
evening to all our viewers.
sorry, sorry to interject, Honorable Minister. Our other panelist is Dr. Sanjay Ramkisoon. You might probably know him. He and you attended UG at the same time, but he's now a heart specialist. And we have Dr. Vishnu Bishram, who you know. So go ahead.
Okay. So let me say good evening to everyone who's tuning into this show. And a special good evening to my good friend and brother, Mr. Dave Narain, who has been a very successful Guyanese living in the US, having his business in the US, and is also contributing to the development of Guyana by investing back in Guyana. To address the issue that you would have mentioned, Doc, a few days ago we would have seen long lines at gas stations. The president would have met immediately with suppliers, with Gayoil and a few of the other companies, Rubis and others, Sol in Guyana, to address the very issue. Because of the president's intervention and having supplies coming into Guyana, immediately we have been able to address that situation, and there is normalcy back now in Guyana. It was just actually for one day, I think it was on Wednesday or Tuesday rather, when we had long lines, mostly because of people getting into a panic of not being able to purchase gasoline, and we would have witnessed long lines at some gas stations throughout the country. But I want to assure you that the situation now in Guyana has been normalized. Almost all the gas stations in the country are open for business. Guyanese are going about their daily lives in a normal fashion. But if we look at the real genesis of the problem as to why there is a shortage among many countries across the world, some, of course, have it worse than we do in Guyana, and also the escalation of the prices of petroleum products. And it will take us back to what is happening in the Middle East with Iran and Israel and other countries that are involved in that war. As a result of that, we see what is happening in the Strait of Hormuz, with ships not being able to pass through, supplies not being able to come into this part of the world from the Middle East, resulting in a shortage globally, I would say, or as we see it, and not a problem that is specific to Guyana. However, in our case, we have managed the situation well with the intervention of His Excellency President Ali, dealing directly with the matter and meeting with the suppliers to bring the situation back to normalcy. So I'm happy that we are at that stage right now in
Mhm.
comparison to some other countries who would have had it
The,
worse.
the main supplier of fuel to Guyana is what country? Trinidad?
Yeah, well, a number of countries. Some come from of course, the U.S. At one time, it used to be Curacao. There's a refinery in Curacao. St. Croix, I believe that refinery is not operating at the moment.
Mhm.
And then, in the past, it really used to be from Venezuela when we had the
Yeah,
Petrocarbi deal. But
right.
majority of it now is coming from the U.S. So we depend heavily on that.
Mhm. Okay, thank you for that update. So you're saying the situation is normal now? Like we have lost the minister there. Um, we have lost him. Okay. In the meantime, Dr. Vishnu, you want to make any comment?
Right. Well, the minister, the president, and a few other ministers went to Trinidad last Friday, and energy was one of the subjects of discussion. Trinidad, as you know, closed its refinery about 5 years ago. So Trinidad is no longer a source for any refined products, whether it's kerosene or diesel.
Sorry about that, Doc. I think the
Yeah,
connection is a bit weak too.
yeah. Okay. Vish, make your point. Let me go back to the minister.
Yeah, Minister, I was just making the point that yourself, His Excellency, and a few ministers, and I don't know if one of the CEOs also went to that last Friday and Saturday, and I believe energy was was on the subject of discussion, and there was talk about setting up a refinery or to use Trinidad refinery to restart it, in which Guyana will supply oil. I don't know if you want to give us a background on that, but just for clarification, Trinidad no longer supplies refined products to any country. It itself is now purchaser of refined products from the United States, just as we are.
That is correct. The refinery has been closed for a number of years now. I think it's probably about 4
5 years.
to 5 years now. The refinery, 5 years. Yeah, the refinery has been closed. However, Trinidad is looking at opportunities or the possibility rather, to reopen that refinery, to put it back into operation. It requires some amount of investment, capital investment. Um, I think they would have had a few companies, one from Africa that I know about, that did technical assessment of the facility to determine what is needed to put it back into operation. They too have been in talks with us, more in particular to guarantee the feedstock, that is the crude. No decision has been taken yet by either Guyana or Trinidad. It is just at the stage where we are still in talks. But of course, we cannot make a decision until Trinidad can put the refinery back into operation or have the investor investment to put the refinery back into operation. Only then we can make a formed decision that yes, we can supply them with crude or not. But as it is now, there is no decision by Guyana or Trinidad. But yes, that was part of the discussion, or as part of the ongoing discussion rather, between the two countries.
Minister, if I may interject and just follow up. In today's Kaito news, there was mention of the Guyana government, I think President Ali, in some kind of talks with the president of the Dominican Republic about establishing a refinery in Guyana. You want to give any clarification to that, or is that accurate reporting?
So if you can recall, a few years ago we had an EOI out for expression of interest to build to design, basically design, build, finance, and to operate a 30,000 barrel refinery in Guyana. So we had a number of companies and countries expressing an interest. one of those countries would have been the Dominican Republic, and they would have shown that they're serious about the investment. They're serious about building the partnership between Guyana and the DR. So they would have indicated to President Ali and the government of Guyana that they're still interested in doing so. Again, we haven't made a decision on building a refinery as yet. It is still being examined, but you would know, you all of us are Guyanese, you would know that in order to build a refinery in country, it must be supported by a port, a deep water port in particular. It is difficult right now to bring in ships into Guyana, large ships, large vessels, mainly because of the draft or the depth of our rivers. Growing up, we always thought that the Demerara and the Barbies River was deep, but today, and in this the development has taken place, we realize that that is one of the greatest hindrance that we are facing, the depth of our river. The most you can get is probably 8 to 9 meters. That is at high tide. And to bring in a tanker with 1 million barrels of crude, you would definitely need at least minimum 15 meters to get that in. So it is tied into the entire development that is being planned for Borbice. I'm sure you heard President Ali spoke of the Borbice development, or we had an entire one-day seminar on the development in Borbice. That is the Crab Island area. Most Barbicians who are looking at it will know the Crab Island area, or the 19th stretch, as we call it. So that's the area identified for one, the deep water port, two, the refinery, whenever we decide on that, and three, the landing of the second gas line. Because as you're aware, we already have a pipeline coming to shore at Wales. That is with power generation, a small pipeline, 12 inches. We're looking at a much bigger pipeline going to Borbice that would take gas from the developments offshore into Borbice, and then we can build out the industries there, whether it's data center, whether it's petchem industries, NGL facility. All of that is part of that big master plan for the Crab Island area in Borbice.
Okay, okay. Thank you, Minister. Dr. Sanjay, you want to make any preliminary comment at this stage?
Sure, sure. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be with this esteemed panel. Minister, it's good to see you. Um, with all the ministries involved in Guyana, I think your portfolio as the natural resource minister is getting more attention from the rest of the world more than any other minister. And I think you're doing one hell of a job there. So thank you very much for the strong work you're doing, representing all Guyanese.
Anjay, if I may interrupt you, it is the most important ministry, but it's the least funded ministry, unfortunately.
Possibly, I don't know the details, but
Yeah.
ministers can fill us in. One of the big things that I have here, this gas to energy project. Can you explain to us exactly how this will reduce the electricity bill for the citizens? And what are the risks if this gas demand project doesn't materialize? What will happen?
All right. Thank you, Dr. Ramkisoon, for your kind words. And I do believe that we work well as a team. And I believe that the success that we have seen over the last 5 to 6 years in Guyana is because of good leadership, bold, sound leadership from President Ali, Vice President Bharrat, Prime Minister Mark Phillips, and the team that we have put together and that is working so well. And Dr. Bisram will know that, yes, we have one of the smallest budget. But I would often jokingly say to my colleagues, especially Minister Ejil, I like to say to him, I said, do you know that I am the one bringing in the money for you to spend? But so the ministry is structured like that, that it is more revenue earner from oil and gas, from mining, from logging. And that is the revenue that basically makes up the national budget. But coming back directly to the question asked on the gas energy project. So you would recall, Doc, because all of us are Guyanese, have spent a lot of time in Guyana, especially in the 70s and 80s. And you know that one of the major issues that we've always had in this country is power generation the reliability of it, and the cost of it. And that has really hindered the growth of our country, even up to today. Because today we still export most, if not all, of our primary products. And I jokingly say sometimes we export our fruits and we buy back our orange juice or whatever juice it is. We export our wood and we buy back the products. We export our bauxite and we buy back aluminum products. And that has happened forever. And because of that, we have never really enjoyed the true benefits of our resources. So now we are on this drive as a government to add value to our products, to build out downstream industries. So rather than exporting raw wood or timber, we want to export wood products. We want to refine our gold and bauxite right in Guyana. We want to do agro processing in Guyana. We want to become a manufacturing hub in Guyana. And this has been severely hindered in the past because of power generation. So that problem really had to be addressed. And the only way that we could have addressed that problem really and truly is through what we call the gas energy project now, which will reduce the cost of electricity by 50%. Obviously, we will have reliable electricity, and in the whole context of climate change, cleaner power too, because it will cut emission for power generation by almost 70%. Even though Guyana is one of the few countries in the world that are considered to be carbon negative or that is a carbon sink. So we are still working to while we are preserving our forests, we are still working to cut emission, whether it's through power generation, transportation, industries. We are still working to reduce that. So that is what this project will do. How it will reduce the cost. Now, the gas belongs to Guyana, well, at least 50% of it based on the PSA that was signed in 2016 by the then government. 50% of it belongs to Guyana. Through, again, good leadership by President Ali and Vice President Dr. Jagdeo, we have gotten Exxon to agree that the gas that will go to the forest, 50 million cubic feet, that will flow through that pipeline and that will be used for power generation, will be delivered free to the country. That is our 50%, and the 50% will be basically donated to us by Exxon. In other words, we're not paying them for that gas. So that is one way of reducing the electricity cost. The other way is that we don't have to import any more HFO and diesel. So that too is a reduction in costs. We are currently updating our transmission and distribution system because it is our system right now is old, outdated. There is heavy line loss. So we are addressing that issue while we are building that power plant. Because I'm not sure when last you came to Guyana, but you would see all these big transmission towers coming across the Demerara River, going all the way up to Anvawat, going all the way to Vredenhoek. All of that is being built with a modern GPS control center behind of Eccles. All of that is being done that I know a lot of Guyanese and a lot of people in diaspora don't know of because you don't see it on a day-to-day basis. So all of that put together will significantly reduce the cost of power in Guyana. We say 50%. Right now, the cost of power generation in Guyana is over 20 US cents. We intend to bring that down at least by half and ensure that the electricity there is a reliable supply of electricity. Back in the days in Guyana, we would say low voltage that will damage your appliances and all that. With the upgrade of the transmission distribution system, then there will be a stable supply of power too. So the idea is to generate cheap electricity so that our people can benefit, because this will benefit all Guyanese in some way or the other, whether directly or indirectly. And when I said that, some people said, how is it that it is going to benefit the people in the interior because they are not on the grid? But they are going to benefit indirectly from this project, because this project will aid manufacturing in Guyana. Just imagine a box of toothpick. We import a box of toothpick. I'm just giving you a simple example so that our viewers could understand. We import a box of toothpick from China. It got to travel all the way from China to Guyana at a cost. When we have the raw material right here in Guyana, we have a forest the size of the United Kingdom, the second most forested country in the world, 1,000 different species of wood. We can make our own toothpick in Guyana, and then we can deliver that to the interior regions at a cheaper cost. And I'm just giving one example, but that's just to show how the interior regions will benefit from the gas energy project. That's why we say all Guyana and every single Guyanese will benefit from this project. And you will know when this project is completed, you will have cheaper power, you would have manufacturing, investment in manufacturing, which obviously will generate jobs, direct jobs, indirect jobs. It will create opportunities for the local private sector as well as foreign investment. It will reduce the cost of products because rather than importing it from other countries, we are manufacturing it right here with our own raw materials and obviously generate more revenue for the government. So it's a project that can only propel or move our country further and can only advance the development that is taking place right now. So it is a project that all Guyanese should look forward to because they will benefit from it as soon as that power plant is completed.
And can you let the listeners know what is a projected date of completion of this project?
Yeah, so what has happened is that the pipeline, the 12-inch pipeline coming all the way from the Stubber block. I point here because the Atlantic is behind me. Coming all the way from the Atlantic where the Stubber block is producing. It is about 225 kilometers of pipeline, 12-inch pipeline coming in. That pipeline is already in the Wales area, ready to turn on. So that part of the project is completed, which is probably the most important part because you can build a power plant, but then you don't have gas to supply to it. Being overloaded system is about 75% completed to date. So it is nearing completion, I would say. I would say probably in a year or so, we'll be in a better position to say that we're switching on at some point in time soon. So it's just a matter of a year or so, and Guyanese will start benefiting from that project.
Yeah, I think what is very important, people in the diaspora don't have an idea, even Guyanese don't know how many power stations and these grids. I think that you all need to explain that in greater detail to us in the diaspora as well as in Guyana, because I was in Guyana 3 weeks ago. I spent 2 weeks of travel through the coast, went to the quarantine Essequibo, Demerara, spoke to people. I visited the Wales power plant. I know the one, the Anvoac, I passed that as well. But most Guyanese don't know about them, and it will be helpful, if your PR department can really help to disseminate this type of information is very important. In the absence of that, there's a lot of skepticism and wrong information, fake news, etc. But let's go back to this. How many FPSOs you have operating now? We talk about all production now.
Yes, so in the Stubber block, which is the only producing block in Guyana presently. So when we speak about producing 920,000 barrels per day, it is only the Stubber block. Of course, we have exploration ongoing in other blocks offshore. And we would have recently signed two agreements, one with Total Energies being the operator. We know Total is one of the major oil companies in the world, partnering with
Mhm.
Petronas from Malaysia and Qatar Energies. So we're very happy to have that consortium sign an agreement with us because those are very reputable IOCs. Qatar Energy, Total Energy, and Petronas out of Malaysia. So they will start exploration very soon as well too. We would have signed another agreement with a Ghanaian company, Cybel. They too are going to start exploration. We are in negotiation with the DR again as well too They would have expressed an interest in acquiring a block offshore Guyana. And there are a few other companies and countries that we are in talks with because they too would have signaled an interest in acquiring blocks offshore. Coming back directly to your question, Doc, on the amount of FPSOs we have offshore Guyana now. We have four producing FPSOs offshore. That is the Destiny FPSO, that's the Liza 1 development. The Liza 2 development is the Unity FPSO. And then there's the Payara development, which is the Prosperity FPSO. And now we have the Yellowtail development, which is the One Guyana FPSO. So we have four FPSOs that are producing in the Stabroek block with an average daily production of about 920,000 barrels per day. In a couple of weeks, maybe another 2 weeks from now, we will commission our fifth FPSO that's being built in Singapore. That is the Erwitu, and that would be the Waru development. You'll recall that we signed that production license a few years back. So that FPSO is completed, and we will be commissioning that in another 2 weeks. It is expected that it will sail from Singapore. It should get to Guyana by maybe August of this year, and the startup and commissioning will commence. And Exxon has given us a startup time of first quarter next year. So I would say safely that next year, this time, in another year from now, we will have five FPSO producing at over 1.1 million barrels per day. And Doug, that is quite significant. What has happened in Guyana, in the oil and gas sector in Guyana over the last 5 years, is unprecedented. It has never happened in any part of the world before. One, at exploration in deep water. Exxon is doing exploration in over 5,000 feet deep water. And to accomplish a success rate at discovery wells of almost 85%, that has never been heard of in the industry. Moving from discovery in May of 2015 to Forest Oil in December of 2019, when we took over government, the production was 80,000 barrels per day. We would have moved that in 5 years to 920,000 barrels per day. And in another year from now, over 1.1 million barrels per day. While production, exploration and production has continued almost on a flawless basis, and I say that in a good sense, that we have never really encountered any major incident offshore, and I must say we are happy about that and thankful about that. We have never had any major incident offshore. Regardless of that, as a small country, we are still prepared for any eventuality. You would recall some time back we passed the oil spill bill in Parliament, which gives direct responsibility to the operator as they clean up the restoration of marine life, compensation. All of that is included in the oil spill bill. And you'll be happy to hear, and Guyanese especially will be happy to hear, that there are 13 cap in stock in the world that is available in the world, and one is in Guyana. Imagine that, a small oil producing country, only 5 years into oil and gas, producing oil and gas, but we have one out of the 13 cap in stock in Guyana. And the cap in stock really is an equipment used in the eventuality of a blowout of a well, so that you can cover that well or spot that well not immediately, in a very short period of time. Before that, cap and stock was in Houston, Texas, and if there was a blowout of a well in Guyana, it would probably take them more than a week to mobilize and to get that cap and stock in the Stabroek block. Having it here in Guyana will reduce that time significantly, maybe by half of the time or even less than that, that we can deploy the cap and stock to basically seal that well and prevent any further damage or oil spill. So while we are producing, while we are happy about that, while we are getting revenue, we're using the revenue to develop our country, we are also putting safeguards in place. Also, what we would have done over the last 5 years, and which we are very proud of, is the local content legislation. And the local content legislation would have benefited Guyana and Guyanese tremendously. If you look at most oil producing countries, you would find that when the IOCs, the international oil companies, move to a country, they basically bring an entire ecosystem of companies that supply them with goods and services. And the citizens of that country basically become spectators or onlookers in their own country with regards to the oil and gas sector. However, with the local content legislation, Guyanese are actively participating in the oil and gas sector. We have many Guyanese businesses. We have registered over 1,300 Guyanese businesses under the local content legislation. Most of them are supplying goods and services to the oil and gas sector, either through, maybe not through directly with, not directly through Exxon, but the tier one and tier two contractors, because we have most of the reputable tier one and tier two contractors in Guyana. When I speak of those companies, I'm referring to Halliburton, Baker Hughes, Schlumberger, Saipem, SBM, Modec. These are all companies that are important in the oil and gas sector, and they have established their base here in Guyana. Technip FMC, these are all giant oil companies or companies that support the explorers, that is Exxon, in Guyana. So most Guyanese are engaged, that would have registered with the local content registration secretariat, sorry, are engaged in providing goods and services to those companies. What is particularly pleasing to that is that 7,000 Guyanese, mostly young Guyanese, are working directly in the oil and gas sector today. And that is something that we are very proud of, because in such a short period of time, we would have managed to train our local people and to have them employed directly on the FPSOs, on the drill ships, or in the laydown yard, or as technicians. They are working directly. And we probably have maybe another 3 to 4,000 that are indirectly employed. So I can say safely over 10,000 Guyanese today are directly or indirectly employed in the oil and gas sector. And the oil and gas sector is structured in such a way it is not labor intensive, it is more capital intensive. So to have about 10,000 of your citizens directly or indirectly engaged and 1,300 businesses engaged is quite a significant achievement in such a short period of time. And as we grow capacity, I know that many other companies will be engaged and involved in the provision of goods and services in the oil and gas sector. The other thing I wish to speak on briefly before I hand it over back to you, Doc, is the updating of the laws. What we had when we took over government was a 1986 Exploration and Production Act. Obviously, that is outdated. I didn't cater for what is happening in Guyana today. We would have replaced that with the Petroleum Activities Act of 2023, which is a modern piece of legislation, and it is designed to manage an oil and gas sector in this modern era as well too, with a number of changes, especially with regards to environmental concerns, cradle to grave management of waste. We would have dealt with the permitting process, that is the environmental permit. So it is not only about boasting of increased production, but it's also putting a framework in place to manage the sector in an efficient and effective manner, and at the same time preserving our environment, because we are probably one of the few oil producing countries in the world where there is a fee if the company flares beyond what they're expected to. Because in all oil production, there is some amount of flaring, but that is capped. And if Exxon flare beyond that limit, they actually pay us a fee for that. And that has really helped in stymieing this flaring, or flaring in general, but rather they would have put system in place to minimize the flaring. So we're probably one of the few countries in the world that have added a fee to excessive flaring. The other thing is that transparency and accountability is key when it comes to managing an oil and gas sector, and we can see that. We only have our last resource audit would have shown that we have probably about 11.6 billion barrels of oil in the Stabroek block. Venezuela, on the other hand, they have probably close to 300 billion barrels of oil. But you have a country with 11 billion barrels of oil that is the fastest growing economy in the world. The one with 300 billion barrels is probably one of the worst economy in this part of the world. The one with the one with 300 billion barrels of oil, 7 million people have left that country over the last few years in search of a better life because of leadership. And that is what has been demonstrated by President Ali administration and the PPP civic government. Good leadership, sound leadership is important. It is not about how much natural resources you have, but it's how well you manage it to ensure that your people truly benefit from that. And we are seeing that. Look at the new bridge across the Demerara River. Some people thought they would never see that. I'm a Barbician. I never thought that I would have seen a bridge across the Barbies River. Soon we are going to build a 4-lane high-rise bridge across the Barbies River, toll free, toll free. So that is giving back benefits to our people. So it comes down to leadership and management of the sector. And that is why when we took office, we decided that we are going to immediately put a proper natural resource fund in place. Some countries producing oil took them 20 years before they could set up a sovereign wealth fund. We did so a year after we got into office. Set up a natural resource fund with a prescribed formula that anyone will know how much money will flow out of that fund into the national budget, that anyone can go online and check the Gazette, and to see the inflows of revenue into that fund. The Minister of Finance has a reporting responsibility on a quarterly basis to report the revenue that goes into that fund. That fund obviously is audited. The only way money can flow out of the natural resource fund is through the national budget or if there is a national disaster. In either way, it must be approved by the parliament. Obviously, the Public Accounts Committee will have to scrutinize spendings. The Auditor General scrutinize spendings. So there's a good degree. We're satisfied there's a good degree of transparency and accountability when it comes to oil revenue. And I guess that is why you're seeing the pace of development and the kind of progress that is taking place in Guyana today.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Minister.
Thank you.
Dr. Vish, I have a comment or question. Dr. Vishnu, you have a question or a comment? He's not hearing. Dr. Sanjay?
Yeah, hi. Thank you very much, Doc. Minister, thank you very much. I remember taking the from Crabwood Creek. So we had to leave at 2 in the morning and get on to Rani to head out to UG. So it was quite a trek, and having the bridge is a beautiful thing. While we're having many infrastructures in the country, and over 10,000 Guyanese are being employed within the gas and oil industry, is there a projection for another 10 to 20,000? Because with all the programs rolling out in Barbies now, do you think our training capacity will be there?
That's a good question, Doc. And I'm sure you're aware. I'm happy to know to learn that you're a Barbician too, like me. And we would have probably crossed on that Rani together several times while we were going to UG. Indeed, the In Borbice, what do we have there is the Guyana Technical Training College. Now, that technical training college in Borbice is a state of the art training center for young people wanting to get into the oil and gas sector. Because while I say we have 7,000 young people directly employed in the oil and gas sector, I am equally proud to say that they hold medium to high level jobs as well too. Because in some countries you can boast that you have 90% of the workforce being locals. But when you do find out, most of them are the lower level or low end jobs. Most of them are laborers, they're cleaners, they're security. We endeavor to break that trend. And we have done well in training our people that some of our young people are reservoir engineers, they're technicians, they're the middle level management. So we have managed to do that. And with the opening up of the Guyana Technical Training Center in Port Moran, Borbice, where we will train more young people. I can tell you that at least 70 young persons have already been trained at that institute, and they're all working offshore. 70 young Guyanese from across the country have been already trained there, and some of them are on the Unity FPSO, some are on One Guyana FPSO, some are on the drill ships operating offshore. So yes, we are building capacity to ensure that we train our people. You know, the University of Guyana now is free. There is no fee at the University of Guyana, and there is a good petroleum engineering program offered by the University of Guyana. Added to that, the Gold Scholarship too presents opportunity for young people to train through our working with us working with some of these oil companies. CNOC, for example, we have about 15 young Guyanese being trained in China right now that will return home in a few years in the oil and gas field. So we have a number of training opportunities that are available for young Guyanese and also for Guyanese in diaspora to come home and ensure that they're trained, they're certified, they acquire a skill set to work in the oil and gas sector. The the thing about the oil and gas sector, though, now, is that they may never employ the amount of people that the agriculture sector employ, for example, because the agriculture sector is more labor intensive, it is more widespread, while the oil and gas sector is more capital intensive and is more technology driven. So what may require five persons to do in one sector, in the oil and gas sector, you might just need one person sitting on a computer or operating a robot or something like that. So
Sure.
it will not generate the kind of jobs that we see in mining or agriculture or forestry. And that is why we are ensuring that we don't make the same mistake that many oil producing countries made along their way. We have seen countries, some of our neighbors especially, they would have basically neglect their traditional sectors when revenues start flowing from oil and gas. We have seen that. Sometimes you can get carried away because the inflow of revenue from oil and gas can be a lot, especially if the oil price is high and you have paid off your cost bank. Then it can be a lot of revenue flowing into your country, um, which will happen to us very soon. So some countries would have basically neglected their agriculture sector if they were doing mining, if they were doing manufacturing. We are not going to make that mistake, and you're seeing that right now. As a matter of fact, President Ali has mentioned that we are going to use the revenue from oil and gas to grow the other sectors, and we are seeing that. So it's not only about infrastructure, new highways, new bridges, new hospitals, new schools. It's using revenue to ensure that we build out the agriculture sector, modernize the agriculture sector, to use revenue to incentivize mining, especially small and medium scale Guyanese miners, because mining is still a high contributor to our GDP, and it employs over 20,000 Guyanese. Like forestry forestry employ over 20,000 Guyanese as well too. So it is very important that we keep those sectors alive, continue to expand them, and to incentivize them. Because all of us know, because we are Guyanese, there are some people, they're comfortable working in the mining sector, that they will never seek a job in the oil and gas sector. There is a logger, whether it's in Region 10, in Hururu or Kukwani, they would never want a job in the oil and gas sector because they're comfortable doing what they know best. And they've been doing that all their life. They will tell you that. So it is very important that we keep those sectors alive because they do employ a large amount of Guyanese that are skilled, that are comfortable, and that have been earning from those sectors for a very, very long time. What we are doing as a government is help them basically to expand and to invest more because the demand has grown significantly in Guyana. If you're a logger now, the demand for wood in Guyana has expanded tremendously because of investments, because of the housing drive, because of everything that is happening in Guyana. Building material, for example, in 2020 when we took over government, our stone production aggregate, stone production was 600,000 tons per year. In 2025, it was almost 6 million tons. We have grown that from 600,000 to 6 million. Timber production in 2020 was 350,000 cubic meter. Last year, it was 495,000 cubic meter, a growth of almost 150,000 cubic meter. Bauxite, when we took over in 2020, was 450,000 tons annually. Last year, it was close to 4 million tons. So we have really expanded the sector, which have really created a lot of opportunities for employment and expansion of the private sector as well too.
Vish,
Yeah, Doc.
If you
go
don't mind,
ahead.
just one follow-up. Minister, do you think AI will have a lot of influence in your portfolio?
Definitely, definitely. As a matter of fact, AI would have an influence across all the sectors very soon. And we are seeing it happening around the world, and we can't be left behind. We are actually preparing ourselves for the new wave, and that's the new wave. That's where the world is heading. It made this place like when computers start coming into real use and technology start coming into real use, it displays rather a lot of humans in terms of the labor that was necessary in some organization. In some organization move to automation, mechanization, replacing humans. And the same thing will happen. But the good thing about us, we're in such a good position that right now we have a labor shortage in Guyana. You find that a lot of immigrants come into Guyana, mainly because of the situation in Venezuela. And they have been doing a lot of the construction work, the road building. So there is a real shortage of labor in Guyana. I work with the miners and loggers. They will tell you that they've scaled down the operation mainly because they can't find workers. You speak to any contractor in Guyana, it's the same issue. So while AI will displace some amount of people and create, some people for losing their jobs, there are other sectors and areas that they can easily fit into. So we don't forecast, or we don't foresee rather any real issue in terms of unemployment being created because of AI. But yes, AI will definitely play a major role, especially in the oil and gas industry. Already we are seeing it, and will continue to play even bigger role as we move forward.
Vish.
Yeah, Minister, I know a few years back, Exxon had sponsored the training of some young people. I think it was in Calgary, and they have come back and for the training at the Portman Institute, and now they have placement on the platforms and so on. Is that program still ongoing? Where we send people and youngsters in Calgary for training?
So quite honestly, Doc, with the building out of that institute in Port Bharrat, there is no need to send our students overseas anymore. As a matter of fact, students now can come from other countries and be trained at the Port Bharrat Institute. It is that advanced,
Yes,
and
I
the facilities
there.
are all there.
Yeah, I was there. I mean, I'm a Port Moran boy, so I visited it every time I go.
Right. So you know it is world class. I can tell it's
Yeah.
world class.
No, Minister, in the US, there are vocational high schools and even vocational junior high schools where they start teaching kids about AI and building computers and robots and so on. Um, is will a time come in when something about oil technology is introduced in the high school at least, so that our youngsters will become familiar with the importance of the sector and where they can also find employment?
I'm happy that you asked the question, though, because you provide me the opportunity to speak about the commitment made by Exxon chairman when he was in Guyana in February. I'm not sure if you follow their visit here in Guyana, but it was the first time that we had the entire chairman and board of directors for Exxon visiting Guyana. They spent at least 2 to 3 days in Guyana. And the chairman would have made a commitment that Exxon is going to spend 100 million US dollars in Guyana over the next 10 years to build out our STEM program, which is very critical. And this really is as a result of President Ali visiting. Fortunately, I was with President Ali last year when we went to see a week in Texas, and we visited the Exxon campus in Houston, Texas. And they have a STEM institute on their campus. And there and then, President Ali had made a request to them to build similar institutes in Guyana. And as a result of that, Exxon has already made that commitment where they're going to invest $100 million. And this will not be added. This is not part of cost bank. This is not part of the expenses. This is actually
A
part of the
donation.
CSR program for Exxon, 100 million US dollars, and we will build out these STEM institutes across Guyana, which will go a long way in helping our young people, especially now that
Mhm.
AI is becoming such a prominent factor, and technology, especially, is driving almost all the sectors, including agriculture. In agriculture, there's so much technology that's being used now, so that investment will be rolled out very soon, and that will really assist our young people in building a career, especially in the oil and gas sector and in the technology field.
Okay. Um, Minister, when I travel through the country, a common question people pose to me or they make a suggestion, and it happened across the board. And most of these people I spoke to, they asked a simple question. They said they don't know what the government is doing with the oil money. How would you respond to that? I and I think that Dr. Vishnu encountered the same thing as well. People want people are not clear how the oil money being spent. They get the impression that the treasury is overspilling with money, and I've been trying to tell them that the previous year, last year, 37% of the budget money came from the oil, and this year is about 33 or 34%. I convert that into Guyana billions of dollars, but yet they are not convinced. They say they are not seeing where the money going. Um, in West Nile, I showed them the new bridge. They are not impressed. So how do you explain that to them so they can understand how the oil money is being spent in simple? I mean, you and I know that, and Dr. Vishnu and
Yeah.
but
That's why I was going to say that it depends on who you speak to, because in a small country, everybody is politically affiliated in some way or the other. So if you're an opposition member or supporter, regardless if you drive over 4 lane Bharrat River Bridge toll free, you will still not see the good in it.
mm,
Regardless if you drive on the New Heroes Highway, you will still not see the
mm,
good. Regardless if you go at one of these new hospitals and you're cared for and you can do MRI test, CT scan, you can do heart
mm,
surgery, they will still be critical about it. So that is the nature of politics in Guyana, because we are such a small country. Almost everything revolves around politics. Almost everyone is politically affiliated and
Mhm.
motivated. So some people will tell you that they don't see any development in Guyana, while the majority of the
Mhm.
people will tell you, my life has transformed. My child is going to University of Guyana free. I can buy my own motor car for me and my children. I can build my own home. I'm living in my own house now. So a lot of Guyanese, you will find that negativity mainly because of politics, but I believe truly in their heart, they're seeing the transformation. They're feeling the transformation. If you can't feel it, then something is wrong. If you can't feel it when you drive over that new bridge across the Demara River, then something is wrong. If you can't feel it when you see 50,000 vehicles register in 3 years and you complain about traffic jam, then something is wrong. And that's one of the biggest problems we have in Guyana. Everybody will complain. They got traffic in Borbees, in New Amsterdam, in Rosal got traffic, Georgetown got traffic, East Coast, East Bank, Region 3. And it is as a result of Guyanese being able to buy their own motor vehicle now. We most of us here grew up in Borbees when you had one car in the entire village. I was born in Edinburgh Village, East Bank, Borbees. They had one car, one motor car alone. Today, almost every home has a motor car, or maybe more than one, parked under the house. That's progress. You go into Blackbush
Mhm.
Pole is the same. You have good roads. Everybody
Mhm.
get not only motor car, they get tractors, they get combine, they get trailer park up in front of the house, they get grain cart. But still, some of them would say things bad. They know what the government doing with the money, but they're progressing. Today, you don't see people trying to leave the country like in the past. You know, there were times as soon as somebody got a US visa or something, you don't see them back. They carry the whole family to the airport. They cook up and they enjoy themselves and they cry and they hello, whatever they got to do. And you never see back that person because there was no hope in this country. We have restored that hope in this country today, where young people are not looking for a way to exit the country. Young people are now looking to go to the university, to acquire the education, to get a house lot, to build their own house, to get a job, to buy their own motor car. And you're seeing that. If you really look for it, you will see it. People who are blinded by politics and hate for the PP government will never see it. Or even though they're experiencing and living it, they will never see it. So when we can give every child, every student in this country will receive $85,000 this year. Every single school child. Every newborn baby will receive $100,000. Pensioner has an increase, I think it's $46,000 now. All the bridges in Guyana, the Barbies Bridge used to be $1,900 for a car to cross. Now you don't pay anything. If you had an SUV crossing the Barbies Bridge, you paid $3,600 every time you cross there. Now you don't pay anything. And yet people would say, oh, we don't see where the benefits are. We don't
Mhm.
see how the oil money is benefiting you. That would not have been possible without one, good leadership and management of the economy, and two, revenue coming in from oil and gas and carbon credits and other new revenue that's flowing in. It wouldn't be possible for us to make Barbies Bridge toll free. Every
Mhm.
time you cross there, you save $1,900
All
every
right.
single time. This is one of the
Let me
few
let me
countries in the world that is more on the main revenue earner in most countries. We have no tax on fuel. So there is so much development and so much to be seen across the country
mhm.
that people can say easily, yes, our country is moving, yes, we're developing, yes, this is where the money is going. But if you're blinded by politics and blinded by hate for the PP government, I guess you will never see, but you will live in a better country, I can assure you that.
Okay. My final. Would you care one of our viewers asks this question? They're still raising, the opposition is still saying they favor a renegotiation of the 2016 agreement. I know the government is very adamant they will not for several reasons, but still people in the opposition, they're pushing this idea of renegotiating the 2016 PSA. What are your thoughts and what you have to tell them?
Well, if the opposition is saying that, Doc, I would say they're very hypocritical. That's the first thing. Because the existing PSA was signed in June of 2016 by the then Natural Resources Minister Raphael Trotman. So they had an opportunity at that point in time to negotiate a better contract. That's the first thing I wanted to say. It was signed by them. And then now you're crying out that, you know what, we should renegotiate or we should have had a better deal. You had the opportunity to do it and you failed to do it. We said from the starting that we are not going to renegotiate the Exxon contract. That is the Stabroek, rather, sorry, the Stabroek contract. But any other agreements signed will have to reap or bring more benefits to Guyana. And we did that. We signed 2 new agreements recently where we have far more benefits that will come to Guyana. There's a better fiscal regime in that in the Stabroek agreement is 2% royalty. We now have 10% royalty. In the Stabroek agreement, there is no tax. That's almost criminal for a government to sit and sign an agreement and say, don't pay any tax. And then the very people today say, renegotiate. In the new agreement, there's a 10% tax. In the old agreement, there's a 75% cost recovery. In the new agreement, there is a 65% cost recovery and then a 50-50 share of profit and losses. So we have changed the PSA that every new agreement, like the 2 we signed late last year, that there is a new fiscal regime that bring more benefits to Guyana. But we said that we're not going to negotiate the Stabroek PSA that was signed in 2016, mainly because of one, we want Guyana to be seen as an investment destination that is predictable, that is secure, and that there is proper policy in place that is respected by the government of the day. We don't want to be seen as a country where people believe that every time a government changes, there is new fiscal regime or there is renegotiation of a contract. People will not come and invest in your country after a time, especially in oil and gas, where it is so difficult to access financing for new exploration. And because of climate change and the pressure that has been placed on the sector, there is no banking institution across the country that is finding it easy to fund oil exploration because of the pressure being placed on them. So had we done that, then we could have been in a worse position that we are in today. And then the word renegotiate simply means that we cannot just wake up one day and say, this is the new fiscal regime. You got to renegotiate, mean you got to sit with Exxon and the other players at the table and to discuss and to agree. And what if Exxon don't agree to the terms and conditions? They will take us to court. That's the bottom line. That's not rocket science. Everybody could figure that out. They will take us to court. And if Exxon take us to court, what happens? It simply means every single thing that is happening in this country basically goes on a standstill. It means the 1,300 businesses that are registered and working in the oil and gas sector, they're out of jobs and income the next day. The 7,000 people working in the oil and gas sector lose their job. All the development and the benefits that Guyanese are reaping today, it basically come to a halt. So we had to honor and respect the contract that was in place, that was signed, to show that there is great predictability and security and investment in Guyana. And as a result of that, we're attracting world-class investors from across the globe because they see Guyana as a friendly investment destination where you have a government that is accommodating, respect sanctity of contracts, and honor the obligation and commitments in every agreement. And that's the reason why. But every new agreement has a new fiscal regime.
All right. Thank you, Minister. Dr. Vishnu, your final comment?
I yield to the minister.
Dr. Sanjay, your last.
I thank you very much, Vickram Bharrat. I know we're taking a lot of your time here, but explaining this to the diaspora and the naysayers is very important, and I'm happy you're bringing out this message to everyone. Thank you very much. And I have more questions regarding the other sectors, right? But I don't think we have enough time for this. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, okay.
I know that Dr. Tara will be following up with me for another session.
Minister, we have to arrange another session because there's so many other issues. We talk specifically in the petroleum sector, but there are other sectors that fall under the purview, like bauxite. We would like to hear about the prospects for the new alumina plant, whether that is still on the table. But I now invite you to do your closing remarks.
All right,
Go ahead.
Doc. Let me thank you and the other panelists. I think we had a very good discussion. Thank you for the opportunity for me to explain to especially our members in the diaspora developments that are taking place in the oil and gas sector, and also to highlight some opportunities that are available. And I want to say to everyone that Guyana is on the rise, and Guyana belongs to all of us, whether we live in Guyana or out of Guyana. Guyana belongs to all of us, and I know many of you in the diaspora, regardless of how long you've been living there, your heart is still in Guyana. So I want to thank you for tuning in. Thank you for always supporting this program. Dr. Tara, thank you for the good job that you have been doing too. I know Dr. Bisram will be doing a lot of work in Guyana, showcasing Guyana, highlighting opportunities and everything. So I want to thank you, gentlemen, for the work that you're doing too.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Okay, thank you, Minister. And, we'll get her back in a few weeks because we have a lot of other issues. And the diaspora, as I said, a lot of this stuff, information that you relayed tonight, I can assure you, most of the people in the diaspora do not even know quarter of it. So it's very important that we have these exchanges. And I can tell some very fascinating stories, but time is running out. So if you can stick around just for 5 minutes, the program will go offline in a minute. But if you can stick around another 5 minutes, which don't go, Dr. Sanjay, hold on for 5 minutes. As if